This is Mending the Soul of the Village, Voices of the Elders podcast. And I'm going to welcome in a beautiful sister in a moment who's working with me on this podcast. But first, I'm going to start with a little prayer. So we're just going to take a moment to close our eyes, bringing ourselves into this present moment of this podcast. Really using the breath to come fully into the awareness of your own self. Just feeling our hearts and saying a prayer for the restoration of the village, a prayer for this time on earth, this incredible time on earth, and the awakening that's happening. Saying a prayer of being able to fully embody ourselves now, to be able to live from the heart, to be able to speak from the heart. Saying a prayer to Pachamama, to Gaia, to the earth, a prayer of gratitude, a prayer of love, a prayer of offering our love to the earth and to all our relations. Offering this podcast as an act of service to the earth and our future generations, the next 7 generations. Offering our words up as a prayer to Spirit for the next 7 generations. Working on the restoration of culture, regeneration of culture, the restoration of ourselves on the inner so we can restore the outer. So really, offering this from our hearts. May we speak truth from our hearts, being wide open to love and the unfolding of all that's becoming in the world. An offering of beauty. May our words be good and strong. Aho. Oh, welcome, Emma, my beautiful sister. Really grateful that you can share this with me. Really, really grateful that you can share this with me. Yeah, I just feel honoured by your presence as one of the younger sisters of my community, but also of our global family as well. And so, yeah, I'm blessed to know you in person. But also one of my sister that's working really doing amazing work in the world and doing amazing work as part of what I call the younger generation of wise beings that are incarnating and bringing us their wisdom and incredible work. And so welcome Emma.
Thank you, Eartha. What a lovely introduction. I'm so honoured to be here and for you to have asked me to come and participate. It feels really, I mean, when you asked me, I was like, yeah, obviously it feels like something we're already supposed to be doing together. So yeah, absolute honour to be here and to bring in that younger voice as well, I guess, to the space, because it's really necessary as like a link and a bridge. And that's, I'm really passionate about bridging and connecting. So yeah, really absolute privilege and honor, blessing to be here. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Really feeling the beauty between us. So we're just going to have a conversation today, from my heart to her heart, from Emma's heart to my heart, about why this podcast and also what we feel is being called for. First of all, I want to say that this work is evolving. I'm not coming on here with any answers or any set thing that I need to say. I feel like the reason why I've called it Mending the Soul of the Village is because together we're becoming there's a need and an awareness in some that we need to come back to this place of family, a human family, and whether that's online as a global family or whether that's within our communities, it's equally as powerful when we begin to understand that we need each other, and that we all have a place within the rich tapestry of the village. And that's how we regenerate culture, is that we honor and witness in each other what we're bringing to the global family and to the village. And we're um, what, you know, my work with rites of passage is really witnessing and honoring the younger generation and the women who are recovering themselves, to enable them to really give of themselves to life by just being their true self, and allowing all of us to just find our particular thread that we're holding, that allows us to create, to rebuild this rich, or actually it's not rebuild, is it, it's to weave a new way together. And I know that you have your past podcast, Finding Your Gold, which is a really simple way of seeing the world and wanting to have a platform for people to express their unique gold. So that's what I feel about this journey of mending the soul of the village. And I also feel like the reason why I want it to be the voices of the elders to the younger generation is because I feel this a need for the elders to speak strongly now about this time on the earth, because there's such a huge amount going on, and the younger generation are in the place of needing to initiate, needing to go through initiation. Well, all of us are, but that, you know, in my traditions, the elders were the ones to initiate the younger generation into their spiritual awakenings. So yeah, I'm just feeling to start to speak towards that. So I'm just wondering if you have anything to say towards
I
that,
guess
love.
it's like I feel and I know a lot of my generation also feel we're kind of like the elderless generation, you know, we're kind of like, we're just out here without any guidance almost. And like, obviously it is there, but it's almost like it's been more challenging to find. I mean, even like meeting you has been like, I found like I've met one of my elders, you know, and that's been really powerful for me to kind of have that connection and that wisdom, that's like that confirmation of these things that I do know within myself, but also having that guidance, I think, is really vital and important. And I know loads of people feel that, you know, I've got many friends who have, you know, especially men who are like, you know, we are our own elders because we don't have that, you know, so far in this community. And I think because there's been so much kind of, so much like blocking of that in society, you know, and like kind of, like the removing of that kind of from the family unit, even, you know, like even within families and stuff like that, we now don't respect our elders as much as we used to, and things like that, you know, we kind of just push them away and we're just like, okay, these older people, they don't know what they're on about, you know, that kind of thing. It's almost like it's been lost. So to have you doing something like this and bringing in the indigenous wisdom and bringing in your own wisdom is like, it's really powerful. And like, I'm definitely going to be sharing this with lots of people, and I think that lots of people my age will really benefit from this wisdom that's coming through. So I'm really grateful for myself and all of my generation to bring through this, to be receiving of this wisdom, because it's really needed.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, I feel that, and I think back to my own youth, you know, and just when I was in my 20s, and I wanted to say, you know, because I'm aware that we're in a place of evolving and evolution, and the younger generation that are working with ceremony and working and having their spiritual awakenings and going through their initiations with ceremony and medicine and shamanic teachings and things like that are amazing beings. And there's been such a huge shift since I was that age, you know, in terms of the amount of young people who are already in their wisdom. But what I wanted to speak to as an elder now, as a woman in menopause, is that yeah, just that space I remember of being in my mid-late 20s, of trying to initiate myself through the path of shamanism and ceremony, because I already had those gifts. I already was awakened to those gifts because I was born that way. I was born with this knowing of my soul path being the shamanic abilities, if you like. And it wasn't until I met the elder women when I was in my late 20s that I realized how much I needed them, how much I needed their guidance and their I don't like to use the word training, but I needed some schooling from them around what I was trying to do, which what I was trying to do was self-initiate, because I hadn't had the elders when I was younger. So, as I became a woman in my, 18, 19, I needed a rites of passage ceremony from the elders so I could feel my soul and then start giving of myself to life. And we don't have that, and I didn't have that then. So I had a delayed path to womanhood, and a delayed anchoring of my gifts and my own unique purpose in the world, because I didn't have the witnessing and the honoring and the holding of the elders until I was like 27. And then I realized how unsafe I'd been in what I was trying to do with the ceremonies and with the medicine and with the um, the teachers I was trying to find, because I was lost, actually, because I hadn't had the holding, so the cultural holding, I mean. And so when I met them, I was really I was really like given the guidance that I needed, I needed schooling in shamanism to be fully able to work through my own healing journey, and then be able to be prepared to hold others. And now, as a woman in menopause, I'm realizing that this journey that I've been on of having of a lot of shamanic training over 25 years, is like actually my recovery of myself to prepare me for becoming an elder. So there's a lot going on within what we're talking about with the mending of the soul of the village, and enabling this unique expression of ourselves in the world through the recovery of ourselves. Is that the elders that we need have had to do a lot of work to recover themselves, to be the elders. And now I feel that this is why I want this to be a spiritual platform for the future generations, so that they can hear from the elders who've recovered themselves and have a huge amount of experience, so that they can speak to these things. Ceremony, we're in a huge spiritual awakening, as you know. So maybe you could speak a little bit to this incredible time that we're in, and how we're having a mass awakening that is way more than what was happening to me when I was your age. The collective death threshold that we're moving through, the collective initiation, and how your generation is navigating that or not navigating that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's such a thing for my generation. I mean, obviously you said that for yourself, you like been born into that, and like, like my initiation was like not that, it was like very sudden. It was and it was through psychedelics as well. It was through medicines that it wasn't held, they weren't taken correctly, like, and it was a lot, it was the biggest. It was very traumatic experience, and actually, like, yes, of course I've taken the wisdom through that, but it's been a lot to integrate. And I think I've had, even though I haven't had like this awareness of that higher space my whole life, I've had that like grounding and like being strong. And like, I think that there's a lot of people that these kind of initiations and events are happening to that aren't able to hold that, because they don't have that grounding, they don't have that strength. I've always had a strong family, and that's not something that's very common anymore, so to have that kind of holding from elders is so essential. It really is. And like, that, especially in like young men, the suicide rates are just like absolutely skyrocketing at the moment. Like everyone's just like what is happening, what is going on, and turning to kind of each other to like to get awareness of this, you know. And like obviously the work that I'm doing myself, and like brothers and sisters the same age as me, you know, we're doing events and we're doing festivals and we're creating safe spaces for people to come and be seen and be heard and be held in this like rapid expansion that they're going through, that some of them have no idea what's happening, you know, they don't know because they've not been told, you know. So yeah, I mean, obviously it's a lot, isn't it? It's like everything is amping up, and even in the few years since I had my awakening, it's just become tenfold, 20-fold, even just in those short years, you know. So obviously I don't have awareness of how it's been, but I know it's been a lot slower before, you know, before I was awakened, and that it is getting quicker as well. So it's like it's like it's time to all step up. And I think like people of my age, you know, I know many people who are really in their integrity and who are really wanting to follow like shamanism and shamanic practices, and really getting good grounding. And there's a lot around integrity and good space holding at the moment, which has come to the forefront. And I think that that's really vital and important, you know, because yes, we haven't had the, you know, the elders and the grounding that we would have had if it was to be an easier path for us, for example. But I also believe that the harder path that we are walking currently is preparing us to be stronger elders for those who will come, you know, ahead, like after us as well. So it's like seeing, you know, I can see all aspects of it. It's like it's a shame that it hasn't been, but also it's like it's really powerful for us to be having these experiences and be able to hold so much space, you know. So even in the few years that I've been awakened, I feel so much more able to hold space now. And I think that, yeah, the more and more of us who do awaken, and, you know, there are these communities there for us now. And it's almost like even within these communities, there's definitely like a lack of elders happening, but like there's people that are stepping up almost into those roles that maybe aren't as, you know, wise in years, but they are still holding that space and kind of channeling that wisdom as well, which is obviously quite, it's more challenging when you're still in your younger years, you know, as well. So it's kind of like, yeah, that deeper initiation into that of like, okay, well, this is your role and your role is already here, and you know, you've got to step up into it now, even though you're not as older as you're going to be, and you know, like you're not fully ready, but it's here for you now, kind of thing. So I kind of think that's kind of how it's affecting all of us, you know. We're all realizing that the awakening has, you know, we've got it's just coaxing us to step into our power, essentially, isn't it? So it's like these are the spaces that need to be held, so we have to step into them. And you know, I have people that, I mean, 5 years ago, I just knew, you know, who weren't into anything, and now they're holding amazing space, and like, you know, and I'm looking up to them as well, you know. So it's almost like the natural order of it is coming to be. And from my perception, I feel like those of us who awaken first or earlier, we're doing the groundwork, but those of us who awaken later are those stronger souls who are able to stay within that sleeping space for longer. And so actually us creating a container for them to step into their power sooner than we have is actually a really powerful, like, ongoing thread.
Absolutely, I hear you. I hear everything that you say, and I see the incredible work that's being done by the younger generation. And I also believe that the elders need to be open to, you know, true elders. No, they need to be open to the wisdom of the younger generation as well. Yeah. It's a, you know, it's a relationship that goes both ways.
Yeah, for sure.
And yeah, so really, you know, if the elders aren't aware of the culture of the younger generations, whatever that culture looks like, there becomes this massive generational gap that is really detrimental. So it's like also recognizing that the elders are always learning and growing and evolving by having a relationship with the younger generation. And that's why you know, my training program is called Healing the Maiden, Restoring Elderhood, because, you know, for those of us who are coming into elderhood at my age, we have to go back and we have to recover our young woman years to be able to recreate the culture of elderhood. And so it's like, as you're all stepping into your power, as you have your spiritual awakenings and your initiations at this time on earth, we're also having to recover ourselves even more to step into our power as elders and to create a new culture of elderhood. So, you know, we're all in this together, aren't we? We're all in this, you know, incredible building of this new earth, this birthing of this new earth. And it's really exciting. And I just want to go back to what you said about integration, because that's what I see. If I'm seeing anything with the younger generation, I'm seeing this incredible wisdom and incredible, profound space holding. And what I'm seeing in my own spiritual practice, my healing practice, is people coming to me who haven't gone through the full initiation and come into the place of integration. So they, you know, so as we experience a dark night of the soul, whether it's becoming an adult, or, you know, teenage years, I mean, or whether it's becoming an elder, menopause for women, or whether it's a trauma, or whether it's plant medicine, you know, psychedelics, or ceremony, whatever it is that took us to that place of needing to surrender and have a death experience but stay alive, which is what initiation is. There's a contraction that happens because we have to completely surrender ourselves to this complete letting go and heal ourselves. But that's the dark night of the soul. It's the death, the shamanic death. The To me, the only way, my experience is, the only way we can move into the rebirth and the expansion of the birthing of ourselves, the new version of ourselves, healed or become an adult, is that we need a witnessing and honouring, which would traditionally have been the elders, to help us to integrate it, to help us to anchor it within ourselves, so we don't go back into the contraction and get stuck in that liminal place, those in between worlds. We need help to integrate through into the expansion fully, so it becomes an embodied wisdom and anchored in our soul, in our bodies, into the new version of ourselves. And what I'm seeing is, because it's almost becoming business-like, that it's so fast that there's not time for the integration. And yeah, I think as you get older, one of the wisdom of the elders is realizing what it takes to integrate, what it takes years to integrate, and needing the actual village, culturally needing the village, and the loss of the village around integrating a person's experiences, and whether it's grief or loss or trauma or adult journeys to adulthood. And so yeah, I just feel, I don't know, I'm going to just ask you, you know, is that what you feel might be happening? Is that there's not necessarily the integration that's needed because of this increasing consumering around shamanic practices or ceremonies? And if that's so, then what do you think the younger generation need to help them choose the right teachers, the right ceremonies, where the integration is an integral part of it, because it's held in a good way?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, fully. Like, it's such a thing, isn't it? It's really such a thing. It's like, I feel like it's almost like this shift from, like, you know, this, because obviously we've been living in a patriarchal society for such a long time, and it's like, you know, we go out, we get the work done, we do it, you know, and so it's kind of like almost the spiritual work is kind of, you know, there's aspects of that now. It's like, I've got to take all the medicine and do all the work and get to my highest space as quickly as possible. And it's like, that's not the rise of the feminine. That's not the softening, the integration that we're actually needing and we're requiring from community and nurture and love, you know. And it's like, it is very boom, boom, boom. You know, I have brothers who are like, yeah, I'm going to go sit with medicine, and then I'm going to go a week after and sit with it again. And it's like, okay, well, when are you resting? When are you integrating? Like, what, you know? And I think, sadly, really, there's quite a lot of people that are it's like they need to go through that, you know, they need to go through that to realize that that's not the way, and that actually, you know, it does take time, and they need to rest, and they need to have that integration time, because that is, you know, that's the main point, really, isn't it? Like, the experience is all very well and good, but if you're not integrating it, then you're not fully absorbing the lesson. And that's the necessity of it, you know. There's no point having the lesson if you're not going to remember it, you know, or if you're not going to like learn from it. So yeah, and it's so, yeah, just having these communities available, and have, like, I think connecting more generally, you know, being for me, like, I'm always on the lookout for where I can like spread some light, and where I can link people, and where I can, you know, connect people to, especially those who are just awakening, to those who might have, you know, awakened a little bit earlier than them, so that, you know, it's like the stepping stones of, like, you know, so everyone's reaching out a hand, and we're all holding each other's hands to kind of ease the way through and walk each other home. But it is so challenging. I mean, when I had my awakening, I just thought I was absolutely mad. I didn't talk about it to anyone, you know, for a long time. And I was just, you know, I just went really into myself and was like, wow, what, you know, what is this kind of thing? And I've always been someone that's been really curious and wanting to see the deeper meaning behind things anyway. So that was quite of service to me. But I think to have elders there, you know, like, now I know I have people that I could go to. If I had a strong experience such as that again, I would be able to express, you know, because I have visions, you know, and like, and as you say, like, back in the day, the elders would have held space and been like, child, talk to us of your visions, and like bringing those visions through, and, you know, and that would have been beneficial to the whole of the family, the whole of the community, you know. And these things there's like things almost that we're missing because we don't have the integration with the community. There's all these different pieces that we're not all learning from, because it's, the integration isn't just about the learning for ourselves, it's about the learning for the whole as well, right? It's not just this like, oh, I need the integration so I can learn. It's like, I need the integration because this is a really potent message that I now need to share, that other people are going to learn from, you know, from me having the courage to share my stories of initiation and my visions. So many people I know have had really profound benefits from that, just from talking it through, you know. So I think it's really important to have that, elder, and to have the awareness of, like, you know, that is there for us, and the reassurance of, like, I am here to hear you, to hold space, like, whatever's happening, and like coming to this space of like unconditional love where it's all okay, like anything can be heard, you know, however you come to me, you will be heard and seen. And I think it's a powerful space for people to be able to step into.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, you know, when we witness and honor a young person that's moving through an initiation, it really anchors it in, because it's you know, when we're going through an initiation, as well as moving through trauma, we're awakening to our soul, and it's through these dark nights that we're able to feel our unique gifts that we're here to give to the world. So it's like, yeah, we when we have the witnessing and honoring of the elders, it just allows us to really see ourselves, and to really feel ourselves, and to really know that all that we are is enough in the world. And I feel like part of this kind of frantic spiritual business that's happening, you know, like, you know, go and do shamanism for a weekend and, you know, come back and you're like fully qualified to hold space, is part of this sort of frantic need to be witnessed and need to be seen. It's like that ego driven kind of like needing to be validated by the outside world. And, you know, when I met some grandmothers, some indigenous grandmothers once, one was from the Lakota people, and one was from Mapia in Brazil, the ayahuasca community. And they both, you know, they spent the whole, when we met them, they'd arranged, there was hundreds of people there, and they had come to speak about what was happening on the earth at this time. And, you know, it was about 10 years ago. And you know, they'd arranged in this community where the grandmothers were coming to have all of the chairs in like an audience, and the grandmothers on the stage. And they spent, I mean, it must have spent like the first half an hour rearranging all of the chairs into a circle. And, you know, just that was like more important than anything, was for them to be in the circle with everybody else. But yeah, so they were the grandmothers from their tribe, but they were also so powerful in their holding of space, because even though they put themselves in the circle with everyone else, they were clearly the ones with the embodied wisdom and experience. And so that's what I feel is like, you know, we don't need to, you know, so this kind of like spiritual business around especially shamanism and plant spirit medicines, I'm going to say, and how much it's mushrooming, and how fast that's happening, is it doesn't allow for this you know, this wisdom to grow and become so potent that you are one of these grandmothers. You know, because they weren't putting on a show, they weren't being the cloaked all singing all dancing shaman that's like, you know, that's got actually a bit of a mask. They were the women of the village, holding the embodied wisdom that they'd gained throughout of their lives, completely unfazed by anything, just really able to hold the space from that place of embodied wisdom. And you know, some of the things that were brought up during that was a younger woman there who talked about ayahuasca in her community, and she was from Oregon, and she was talking about how they were using ayahuasca in their party. After their parties, they were like drinking ayahuasca together, and she was a beautiful young woman, really really lovely, but the grandmother from Mappy was absolutely horrified. For ages she couldn't get what the young person was saying, and eventually everyone helped her to understand. And then she was like absolutely shocked, and she was like, no, it can turn inside out, not like this, it can turn inside out. And it's like that inversion of spiritual teachings, isn't it? And yeah, I really understood what she was saying about. And then the Lakota grandmother said, you know, this is more white man's games, and she'd been told by her grandfather, you know, to keep her ears open and her mouth shut, because they would come with untruths again. And she said around their spiritual traditions, and she wasn't blaming, she was just saying that we can't comprehend, because our culture is so fragmented, we can't comprehend the enormity of these ceremonies and these yeah, we can't, we've lost so much that it's really hard for us to grasp what's actually happening during a ceremony, what's actually happening during medicine, and this spiritual traditions, and how, you know, we have this you know, this quick way of like consuming it, and we're not actually having the time to be embodied within it, or wisdom. So if you want to say something towards that.
Yeah, definitely. It's like, yeah, it's like we're just rushing it, aren't we? It's like we miss the subtleties of, like, it's like we plant the seed and we want the fruit like the next day. We don't allow for the time and space. And I guess that's because we're also so detached from nature, you know, we're so detached from the natural flow. We kind of want everything to be fixed and healed really quickly, whilst we, you know, we don't see that, you know, nature takes its time, and it heals things when it's supposed to, you know, and the fruits and the roots don't come at the same time, you know. So it's kind of like we need to have that awareness. And it's really, you know, I've been hearing a lot about people smoking like DMT vapes at parties as well. You know, I know it's more of a thing in America, but again, it's like, you know, my brother, for instance, his first time taking acid was at a party, and he totally freaked out. And it, you know, and my initiation was at a festival, you know, eating too many mushrooms, and it wasn't my intention. But you know, it happened, you know, because it was supposed to happen, and it was what was supposed to come through at the time. And I really do also see that whatever is happening is perfect and is supposed to be happening, and we can also do better. We can also learn from that and have better experiences where it is more integrated, where it is more held. And I think creating the spaces, like myself and my community now are creating, of having spaces, you know, not about medicine. I do feel called to share plant medicine, but I know I'm not ready yet. And at the time, if it's meant, it will come in for me. You know, I've kind of been putting feelers out and stuff like that, but I also have awareness of how potent that is and how strong that can be, you know, and just how much, you know, we don't have control over that. We don't have, you know, the power that we have is creating the container and having the safe space for whatever the spirit wants to move through in us while we're having that. And if we're going off and doing 2-day courses to be a shaman, or like now I can serve medicine because I went on a retreat one time, like it's not going to create that safe container, you know, because we're not actually safe in our own container, let alone holding others in that. So, you know, how could there's just no, it's the grounding, isn't it? It's that grounding and the respecting of the time that it will take, you know. And I think that's also, sorry, carry on.
No, it's okay. I was just going to pick up on what you said about the time that it takes. You know, this is what I'm speaking towards, is just the amount of time that the elders have had on the planet doing this work to be able to embody it. And it's only as you get older you start to understand, you know, how long it's taken you to integrate experiences. And yeah, it just feels like this, the need of the elders to hold that space, that strong space for the young people, just to really know that, yeah. Even, and I just want to pick up actually what you said about everything being perfect. I the same as you. It's like we're on a journey, aren't we? So there is this harvesting of the wounding and the separation and the fragmentation that's bringing us even more into wisdom. So I'm definitely not saying that there's anything negative.
Yeah,
Everything's absolutely perfect. We're on a journey together as souls. Yeah, so I feel the same as you, that, you know, it's just about how can we learn and grow together, being more conscious. So being more conscious in what we're choosing, being more conscious in what we're attracting to us, being more conscious in what we feel is right for us and what we feel isn't so good for us, and being more conscious in the integration. And that's what I feel around the spiritual consumerism, is it's not conscious. It's so yeah, I want, because to me you're a really conscious being. We know each other and we spend time together, and so, like, what, you know, how would you choose? What are the signs for you that's a good teacher or a good space holder? You know, like, how, that's what I feel about the young people. Like, what can I say to the younger generation? You know, there's like teachings on intuition and knowing, but because we're lost in a separated culture, it's quite hard to really feel inside sometimes what it is that's calling us and what's right for us.
Yeah, fully, definitely, because it's like I don't know what my intuition is, so how can I follow it? Yeah, so it's so true, isn't it? It's so interesting. Yeah, I guess for me, like, a good space holder, like I just observe. That's what I do. I observe. And I think there's also a piece on like because I had my awakening 4 years ago, and I knew I was being called forwards to assist others, but it took me so long, and it's still now, I have like almost imposter syndrome of like, I'm not ready yet to hold space. And it wasn't until like last year at festival season, and I was holding a space with a sister and just holding so many other sisters, and I was like, oh, I'm actually able to do this. That's really powerful, you know. Like, it's kind of, that was my sign that I could do that more and I could step more into that. And I think just the observation, like how, you know, as you're saying, just being more conscious, how is a person holding themselves? How is a person holding themselves in every action that they're taking, you know, like witnessing people, observing them, and how in integrity they are. Because I think there's lots of, especially with, because it's the spiritual ego, isn't it? It's essentially the next step up, you know, we have our awakening and then we're like, oh, I'm so enlightened, and you know, everyone should listen to me because I'm a direct channel to God. You know, it's like it's beautiful, and it's beautiful you have that connection, and also like the humility, like how much humility does someone have when they, you know, when they need to learn, when they need to take a lesson for themselves, you know, how, yeah, because I think there's so many people, especially I see in the festival circuit as well, this kind of like conscious festival circuit, everyone's having a great time, you know, and there's singers that are, you know, that are singing all this amazing stuff and, you know, telling us all to be conscious, but then not holding that themselves, you know, and it's just like, well, that's not, it's distorted, it doesn't align. So therefore, for me, energy like that, because I've trained my energy and I'm used to, you know, even before I had my awakening, I was quite energetically aware that like it feels jarring to be around that energy. And the more that we can tune in to kind of ourselves, which is why I think it's like having these spaces for stepping stones, you know, because like someone who's like just had an awakening, or even just before that, you know, because I think there's build up time almost before people kind of come into this. I think it's really necessary to have those points of stepping stone of like, okay, you know, maybe let's go and we'll do an ecstatic dance, or we'll do a sound healing, or, you know, bringing people into this awareness that there is a different way of how it's always been done. And I think we can only do that really by leading by example and just showing, and for me, just showing love and acceptance wherever anyone's at. So I think that that's a really potent thing, because that's, I guess for me, that's the way I've really connected with people, just kind of meeting them where they are. And that's not to say I lower myself, but like I am able to meet anyone wherever they are, because I am a multidimensional being. So we can meet someone, you know, and in that way we become the link, we become the bridge for them. But again, it's like, yes, we can plant the seeds, but the people, you know, it's up to them to do the work as well, you know. So it's that thing of like, yes, it's beautiful to be able to have elders and to be able to have these beings assisting, and we still have to be doing the work as well.
Absolutely. So what else I wanted to speak towards was this you know, the fragmented culture trying to find its way through this awakening that's happening, and all of the en masse sort of offerings of shamanism and ceremonies and things, and how you know, what in your experience is happening, because I'm seeing more fragmentation happening on some levels in terms of mental health and soul loss, and how what you know, if I feel like there's a crisis with young people, you know, you've got the spiritual awakening, but you've also got the crisis in young people too, you know, because you've got the you know, the new earth is birthing, but there's also a lot of chaos, there's a lot of darkness, there's a lot of, you know, being bombarded in social media as well as the mainstream news, and which is throwing people around into fear and lack of hope for the future. And
Definitely.
and then trying to awaken and getting mental health issues from the fragmentation of the unheld ceremonies. So yeah, what, you know, what do you feel could help that generation, you know, maybe even younger than you, love, who are coming into their adulthood and are being faced with what they might be seeing as a world in complete chaos, and they don't know how to step into the awakening of the new earth, and they're almost at the in a really vulnerable place in terms of choosing unheld ceremonies. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah, so there's
Yeah,
this, yeah.
yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, I guess it's like, I mean, because I've got a lot of friends who are 10 years younger than me as well, who are kind of early 20s, and their initiations have been even deeper than mine, actually.
Mm.
And I kind of see it on like a spiral, like the kind of closer we get to the end of the spiral, the more chaos, but also the more light. It's like I've been likening it to a bouncy ball, like the polarity. So it's like it's the highs and the lows. And back in the day, it was like we'd be higher for longer, but now it's like it's the bouncy ball's going crazy, you know. But eventually, it will reach that point of neutrality, you know. And I think that's something that we can hold and know that actually all the clearing that we're doing eventually will come to a place of clarity. And also like trusting the process, you know, like yes, the younger people are having more intense initiations, but some of them, I mean, you know, my good friend Libby, for example, I learned so much from her, you know, and she's 10 years younger than me. So it's like that's that thing again of like, just because we're older and wiser in years, actually the ones coming in now, the newer souls, have more access, they have less density, less karma to clear, all of that. So they have more direct wisdom. So I think actually, even though sometimes their paths may look more fractured and intense and all of that, actually they're going to be those ones who come to a more rapid stillness and a more rapid healing space, if we can kind of, again, leading by example and creating the spaces. I think that's such a thing, creating these spaces and making people aware of these spaces that, you know, you can come and be, and you know, it's just something that's not so niche, and it's not so like, you know, this isn't a little clique, this is open to you as well, this is open for everyone kind of thing, you know. And but it is, I mean, it's a challenge, isn't it? Of course, like nothing, we've not found that perfection state yet where everything is held and all of that, but it's just doing what we can do and like doing what we're guided to. And I think also like the more practical side, the more physical side, the more embodied side of working with our nervous systems, like that's been a big one for me at the moment, like really calming my nervous system down, because the amount of fight or flight that we're all in, you know, it's crazy, like everything's going mad, you know. So actually, you know, just having a breath work session or a, you know, or just something very simple, you know, like dancing, moving, you know, shaking, like all of it. It's like, and it is coming in more and more, you know. I'm seeing things, you know, on Instagram of like people with hundreds of thousands of followers that are speaking about stillness and meditation, and you know, it is coming in very strongly. And I think it's like almost that we're in preparation for that, aren't we? Essentially, like we're in preparation for the floods of people, you know. They will come they will come at some point, and it's almost like we need to be readying ourselves and readying those who are also on the point, you know, because we can see them, can't we? You know, like I can see my younger friends who are strong and have awareness and have power, and almost that our seeing of them helps them see themselves as well. So when we are able to be in that observer and see those who are younger than us, who maybe need a bit of extra assistance, or who are really on a path and who are going to be so powerfully holding space at some point, for us to go, hey love, I'm here, you know, like it's okay. And I think that's a real part of our work as well, is to be seeing those younger than us, to reach out and hold space for them too.
Absolutely, that's what I'm talking about, love, with the mending of the soul of the village. Incredible. And just one, the last thing I want to speak to is death.
Yeah.
You know, because you know, while we're talking, you know, what I feel from an elder as a woman moving into menopause is this huge death threshold that I'm in. as I move into elderhood, and how many, you know, what I've been teaching around rites of passage is how many times I've died and stayed alive in my life. You know, how many times I've had to go into that dark night of the soul and rebirth myself. How many times I've had to completely let go of the woman I was before and allow myself to step into the new version of myself. How many times have died unconsciously, you know, without awareness, when I was younger. And then as I moved into my late 20s, 30s, I became aware of how to die more consciously because of my shamanic training. And now I'm in a place of like, that, you know, to me, like, death is welcome all the time, like completely like aware of dying consciously in every moment that comes, and just aware that, you know, how to do that and how to live then consciously from dying consciously, and how many times we have to go through these initiations, and how I'm preparing for my own death by learning how to die consciously many times. So for me, an elder is, true elder is someone who has been doing that, who has got to the place where they are ready for their death because they've died consciously many times. And I feel that, you know, this collective death threshold we're in, where we are all like, the path is to bring consciousness to this collective death threshold that we're in, and to allow the old paradigm to die so that we can step into the new. So how much our personal initiations of dying and being reborn is informing this massive collective death threshold that we're in. And so, yeah, that's, I don't know if that's how you feel, but I feel, you know, if I'm stepping into elderhood, that's what is makes me as an older woman be able to hold space for your generation and younger, is that I am not um, phased by the death and rebirth process, because I've had so much experience of it and I've learned along the way. And I feel that that makes me, you know, moving towards being able to be embodied in my path in this life, and to really step into who I truly am, not who I'm becoming. Like, to me, the the phase of life you're in is you stepping into who you're becoming fully, so you can give of yourself to life. My phase of life is like, I don't need to step into who I'm becoming. I already am embodying who am. I've become that woman, and now my task is to embody it completely so that I can prepare for my death, you know. So I kind of feel like the beauty of these life stages, especially as women, you know, the beauty of us being able to share between us these life stages that we're in, and the death process and the rebirth process that we're in, and how that informs the health of the village, the health of the global family as well. And that anchors in the integration as well as of me being an elder, is like having that witnessed by the younger generation, that they are seeing me in my wisdom, and they are coming to me because they see me, you know. So yeah, I just really wanted to share that, and yeah, speak to the younger generation about, you know, what death truly is, and how to allow yourself to be more conscious in your movement towards your death process. And yeah, I just wanted to say that. It's not really a question or anything. But yeah, maybe finish with your perspective on what you feel is happening at this time on Earth in terms of what's dying, like what's dying in this old paradigm.
Yeah, I mean, yes, yeah, thank you for sharing that. It's really, yeah, it's really powerful, that like that death aspect, and like yeah, and having spaces as well. I think it would be really powerful for you to have a space where you could express and share more about that for the younger people, for the younger generation, because I think it would be really helpful. Because I think especially, you know, I touched on the suicides and stuff as well. Like my perception of that is that I feel like the ego is dying collectively. That is my perception. And I think that especially my perception of the masculine and the feminine is the feminine has the almost the physical, the cycles, the fit, you know, the body stuff, all of that, the menopause, and then the masculine has the mental, the ego, the, you know, all of this very strongly ingrained. So from my perception, the suicides within young men are those who are very attached to their egos and they are needing to die, but they're so like, oh, that's me, that they feel that they need to die fully, you know, in body as well as in spirit. And I think that when we can kind of come to a space where we're showing them the difference and we're reminding them that it's a constant birth and, you know, rebirth and death cycle, which obviously women have with our cycles anyway, you know, we die every month. So it's like that thing of like, yeah, bringing that to awareness as well in the forefront and sharing that. And I am seeing that more as well. But yeah, I think collectively, like my perception is that we're going through a massive ego death essentially, and that's in like levels, because we'll move to our spiritual ego, and but the ego from my perception is essentially what keeps us separated. So it's a beautiful tool for us to be able to experience this life as a human from a separate perspective, and also it's not all that we are. So as we can move away from that, yeah, I mean, I believe that we're all moving back to light, to pattern, and for us all to entirely dissolve is a terrifying concept because all we've known is being human and being in these bodies and being of this planet, you know, and not formless, shapeless light, you know, that is like nothing and everything all at once. So it's like going from the point of like being this to being that is obviously a massive transition. And I feel like my biggest, like the thing I've been shown and the thing I was shown when I had my awakening, the vision that I had, the main point was to release attachment, because eventually everything will fall away anyway. And I think that that's where we need to be really, and just loving and releasing and trusting, because when we can trust, then we can just like allow the experience to be. And I feel like we are just the experience wanting to be experienced in all of our fullness. So when we can release any need for that to look any specific way and just trust that everything's perfect, then we'll do just as we're supposed to be doing. And however that turns out is going to be just beautiful, I'm sure, you know. So it's like, yeah, just like finding each other and coming back together, that remembering who we are, and then the word remembering, like coming back together with all of the other members of the whole, of the oneness, in family and community.
Yeah. Oh, so I'm really feeling like there's so much more that we could talk about. I'm really feeling like I'd really like to delve deep with you into, you know, what you've just spoken towards is like, how do we then be truly ourselves, you know, to be able to do what you've said and to come into a space of trust in this death process. And, you know, you spoke of the young men and suicide, you know, in my experience as a woman working with rites of passage is that men, because women have their bleeding, we have a huge outer signal that we are going through a death process when the blood comes, when we're teenage girls, and when we bleed every month and menopause, it stops. So it's a huge signal from life that we're changing, that we're having a death process. And with the hormones, there's a spiritual awakening for us to really step towards into our soul, like be aware of ourselves as a soul through the hormones and the changes, and being taken to that edge of, you know, insanity and exhaustion and bleeding and all of that. And the men don't have the outer marker, so it's almost like the blood is our ceremony to show us that we're changing, and we have to let go and surrender and allow the blood to come so we can rebirth ourselves. And so because men don't have that, they take it literally, because they're feeling their inner death. So we feel our inner death with our blood. That's why it's so intense to bleed. And we have our moon time that men don't necessarily always understand, because they, we are taken to the edge, but we have the blood to show us. And they need more ceremony in a way, because they're being taken to the edge, they're feeling their inner death, and the only way they can express it on the outer is by driving fast cars or taking substances, or taking it literally, taking the feeling of dying literally and committing suicide. And that's why the rites of passage ceremonies are vital. That's why the elders are vital, the elder men, well, probably, and the women. And it'll be interesting to speak towards that with the elders that come on this podcast, because they need the elders who face death many times to show them that, and to make the ceremonies that are necessary for them to feel, to feel the death, the walkabout or the Sundance or the Sweat Lodge or whatever, the Vision Quest. And so I'd like to speak more to these things, because what I'm feeling in my own life as a woman moving towards elderhood is that we have to co-create new ceremonies now for this time on earth together, because the death experiences that we're having are on the collective, they're global, we're aware of them all, we're hearing it all the time on the news. We wouldn't have known, would we, what was going, the death process they were in on the other side of the planet. We might have felt it, but it's such a huge portal we're in. And so I really feel like, let's carry on these conversations around, with the elders, but with each other, around trauma, how to clear trauma so we can trust. How can we open our hearts to ourselves and to others if we're holding trauma, and soul loss and fragmentation that comes from unheld spaces. I'd really like to speak of these things with you another time.
Yeah, for sure. I'd love to.
This conversation on this podcast. I know we'll talk about it in person when I see you, but so well, let's leave it there, love. That's
okay,
really
love.
Beautiful conversation. And really thank you to everybody listening in.
Thanks everyone for joining us. And thank you,
great.
Eartha, for your beautiful holding of this space. It's been really an absolute honor loving you.
I love you too. And I'm really looking forward to all these beautiful elders that are going to come on the podcast, starting with Pat McCabe on Saturday, who's a Lakota Navajo woman who I've met in person, and she is Woman Stand Shining, and she is Woman Stand Shining.
Amazing.
And on Rock then on Sunday, who is a woman I met when I was 27 and who changed my life, and was that woman when I was a young woman that I needed. And she really saw me. So I haven't seen or spoken to her for 20 years.
Wow.
So
it's going to be so powerful. So Saturday and Sunday, and what times are they going to be?
So they're going to be, that's going to be midday, around 11 midday for them. They're in Guatemala and America. So for us it will be around 7 o'clock at night. So I'm going to post
on Saturday and Sunday, on both days.
Saturday and Sunday, both
7
days.
p.m. UK time. Okay, amazing. So excited to see them.
Underneath this YouTube channel, and subscribe to the Woman Becoming YouTube channel, which is the Mending the Soul of the Village, Voices of the Elders. So thank you, Emma, once again. I really love you.
Love you too.
Bye.
Bye.